All right. Hey, my friends. So, in this episode, we are going to talk about the question, what do I do when my intrusive thoughts change themes? And so, this was a question that we recently got in our FAQ series. And again, I'm paraphrasing the question just for the respect of time in this episode, and to really talk about it from a concept that I think will serve the most people. So, the person was submitting a question talking about two specific themes, but really I want to talk about it from a broader angle because I think it will ultimately help get the results that the person's looking for. So, real quick before we dive in, please help us out by liking and subscribing, as well as leaving a nice comment or review on iTunes and Spotify. And then also, please remember that we have a Intrusive Thoughts live workshop coming up at the end of August. And so for more information, you can check out the links in the notes where you please, at the very least, make sure to join our email list so that we can notify you and let you know, because there's going to be a limited amount of seats. It's going to be live on Zoom. So with the idea of intrusive thoughts changing themes, is very common and to be expected in some ways, right? And the issue with this question, much like the question we talked about out in the last episode of what do my intrusive thoughts mean, is how we understand a problem is going to determine what we do to try to solve it. And what we do is going to determine our results. So for many people, you may be searching and looking for help with intrusive thoughts. And so the whole reason we titled this is because that's what a lot of people search for. That's what I was searching for when I was looking for help. And once you understand that, but if you think that intrusive thoughts are the problem, the issue is you're always going to be analyzing your thoughts, and you're going to be thinking about them, trying to figure them out, scanning to see if they're there. You're going to be trying to thought block, thought suppress, thought replace. You're going to be praying against your thoughts to have good thoughts. You're going to be trying to replace bad ones with good ones. And you're going to be in this big mess of fighting with your mind. And at the end of the day, it's going to get you nowhere. I just want to issue a spoiler alert on that one, because I've tried all that. And, I've yet to meet someone that's been successful with those tactics. And if you are, that's great. Then, the reality is, if you were, you probably wouldn't be watching this or listening to this, right? If we're just being transparent. So the reason that it's not an effective strategy is because it's working at the problem from the wrong context. And what we need to do is we really need to understand intrusive thoughts are a mere symptom of the problem, not the problem itself. So, sometimes I like to use this analogy, and I'm sure I've used it before, but, it's worth saying again just in case you haven't heard it. But imagine that you lived and in your backyard, you walked out and one day and it was just full of mud. And you perceive it to be a mud problem. So if you try to solve a mud problem, you are trying to dig out all the mud and then put, new sod down and trying to dry out the ground and all that stuff. Only to realize that the reason you have the mud problem is because your neighbor up the hill from you, a water pipe broke in their yard and the water's leaking into your yard, causing the mud problem, right? Now, if you look at the problem from the bigger context, solution's very easy. Once you cut off the supply of water by, cutting off the leak or fixing up the leak, then the ground has a very natural way of drying up, and you don't have a perceived mud problem anymore. Very similarly, with intrusive thoughts, a lot of the reason that we have the problem is because we're indirectly feeding it or watering it, if you will. And how we do that is through our behaviors, because once we understand that the intrusive thoughts work from a loop perspective, and the loop forms based on our behaviors that we engage in, the more behaviors we engage in, the more intrusive thoughts we're going to experience. And the more that loop goes, obviously the various themes tend to pop up for people. So it tends to bounce around from a certain theme to a certain theme to a certain theme. And if we constantly work at it from a theme perspective, that's like working at the mud from a mud perspective. There's always going to be more mud because water is consistently coming in to create new mud. And it would be very frustrating trying to shovel out a mud hole if someone's constantly pouring water into it, right? You just, it's not a good thing to do. So similarly, from an intrusive thoughts perspective, when we understand the loop as the issue, right, and that's what I talk about in my book, From Stuck to Unstuck, which we'll throw a little link in the notes as well for that. When you understand the issue from a larger context, you're able to work at it from a different perspective. For many of you, if you're dealing with intrusive thoughts, chances are you've been going at it for a while, and chances are you feel like you're not getting results. And the issue is not because you're not trying. Like, I want to really stress that. It's not your fault. It's just that you're working at it from the wrong context, and because of that, you're doing things that are paradoxically keeping you stuck. And when we understand that, the idea of intrusive thoughts changing themes, it's just like we can't work at it from that level. Because even when you, quote unquote, get one theme settled and under control, it's just another one's going to pop up. And we know that will just happen again and again and again and again and again and again. And obviously the issue with that is the more you stay stuck in the loop and stuck in your head, the less you're experiencing life. And that really is where we want to try to solve this from a place of you being able to get out of your head and really start living how you want to live. And if you're constantly under the assumption that the only way you can do that is by eliminating every intrusive thought that happens, or fighting against it or trying to change it, the reality is that that's going to keep you stuck. And I just want to be transparent about that, and really honest with that, because I've tried that. I know many other people have tried that, and I've yet to see someone who's been successful working at it from that perspective. I've seen plenty of people who have been very successful breaking the loop when we work at it from a higher perspective. And that's why I want to share that in this particular episode, and why, if you haven't gotten your seat to the Intrusive Thoughts workshop, I really encourage you to do so, because when you work at it from a different way, that sometimes, it's pretty amazing how quickly these loops can break when we really understand things differently. So I hope that was helpful. And again, I know it doesn't specifically say like, okay, the answer is very obvious to the question. We need to do the same thing with all intrusive thoughts, and it doesn't matter the theme. And we need to be working at it from the right context and the right state of consciousness to really have the results that you're looking for. And the problem is many people are looking for this result of being free from the mind, being free from being stuck in this wheel, but they're just working at it from the wrong perspective and wrong context. So that shift is really what's going to help you get results. So hope that was helpful. And please check out the links in the notes for all the different resources to get started with, and make sure to get that seat in the workshop, to just make sure, because it's going to be live. So thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Hey there. So if you enjoyed that video, we've linked up a few more videos that we think you'd find helpful as well. And if you have found this helpful, we'd really appreciate your support by liking and subscribing. And if you're looking for help and guidance, please check out restoredminds.com, as we have several options for you to get started. See you guys soon.